Welcome to the 9 News Business Buzz. I'm Ryan Frazier, 9 News Business Expert. If you look at the headline numbers from Colorado's June jobs report, it looks like a solid win. 4,800 jobs added, easily beating our recent monthly averages. But when you look under the hood, a much more complicated picture emerges for everyday Coloradans. Nearly 87% of our job growth this year is coming from just one single sector, while our overall economic growth seems completely detached from the local labor market. Joining me to look at the jobs numbers and to look out 6 months into our possible economic future is Dr. Phyllis Resnick, lead economist at the Colorado Futures Center. Phyllis, welcome back on the program.
Thanks for having me back, Ryan.
Always good to talk economics and to have the Colorado Futures Center on the program, Phyllis. Now, the 4,800 jobs we added in June beat our recent averages, but for the first half of this year, nearly 87% of all the new jobs were in healthcare and social assistance. Are we essentially leaning on a healthcare crutch? And what does that mean for someone trying to find work outside of hospitals and clinics today?
Sure. First of all, I applaud the pun. Absolutely. This is a relatively new phenomena. It's not unique to Colorado. It's happening across the country that we see the overwhelming number of jobs being created in this healthcare and social assistance sector. So it includes folks who are providing home health care and other kind of services to folks. And so it means that probably if you're looking for the best place to get a job, you might want to study healthcare or allied health fields. However, to me, it's a little bit of a warning sign for the economy. As with anything else, when you're undiversified, you open yourself up to risks. And it also means that there's vulnerabilities in our other economic sectors for employment.
Well, does it also mean if it wasn't for healthcare and social assistance, would Colorado actually have saw job losses?
We wouldn't have job losses. Overall, there are some months where absolutely the numbers would have been negative had it not been for the healthcare jobs that we were adding. Overall, since only 87 or 88% were from healthcare and social assistance, we are adding in some other places. So we would still be up for the overall, but we would be in a much weaker position if we weren't adding all of these healthcare and social assistance jobs.
So let's turn to your latest Colorado forecast. Now, your latest Colorado forecast looks 6 months out, projecting, in this case, healthy economic growth in the 3 to 4% range through the end of 2026. If job creation, though, is somewhat sluggish, what exactly is driving this growth, and does the average worker actually feel it?
Sure. So as you know, at the Colorado Futures Center, we saw a need for a shorter term outlook. So we have a model called the Colorado Cast that we release every quarter. Our next formal release will be about a month from now. But knowing that we were going to have this conversation today, knowing that the economy is, fairly volatile right now, I decided to do a little secret run. And we're seeing the economy hold. The rates of growth have slowed a teeny bit from when we last released our second quarter model, but we're still seeing healthy growth, not anything that makes me worried that we're headed for a recession. But again, in an economy where we are seeing kind of anemic job growth and so much reliance on one sector, there are some warning signs in there. To your question about what does it mean for workers, it means that it's very uneven. We hear lots of stories, particularly with younger folks who are having trouble finding jobs in sectors other than healthcare, who are trying to start off in their careers, which, over the immediate and intermediate, even long term, could be an impact for them or an issue for them. And so when I see an economy where our economic growth numbers continue to grow, but employment is a little more anemic, it's cautionary for me. Probably those two things will not continue that way forever. There's going to be some reckoning between the two. And maybe we have a moment to talk about, what might happen and what might be driving this growth in the wake of slower employment growth.
Let's talk about that for just a second, Phyllis. Because, everyone's talking about the K-shaped economy, right? And you and I were talking offline about that. But it seems like those who typically have a little more means and have perhaps a little more retirement or savings, they're the ones who are really keeping this economy moving versus those who are on the lower income, if you will, part of the continuum, are not so much, or not doing quite as well. Is that fair to say in terms of what you're seeing out there today?
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say, as we hear all the time, the U.S. economy in Colorado is the same, is anywhere between 2/3 and 70% consumption. And to a large extent, the consumer has held through these times. And I think the consumer has held because there are households that have, that are doing fine, that have accumulated wealth. We have a kind of young retirement population that's still healthy enough to be out doing things and spending what they earn through their years of working. But then we hear about the other side where we have young folks who are having a harder and harder time finding jobs, keeping jobs. We have, households that aren't doing as well. And with those households trying to continue to consume, we're starting to see some cracks.
Yeah.
We're seeing credit card debt increase and some other warning signs that this may not be able to perpetuate.
Let's talk a little bit more about those cracks, not to be a negative person at all today, but the reality is what it is, right? Since last year, we've lost nearly 10,000 jobs across information and financial sectors, areas that are highly vulnerable to automation and AI. Is this AI effect in real time, or are companies figuring out how to make more money with just fewer humans?
I think the jury's out on that. I think that for sure we're in a transition period where we've had this influx of very powerful technology, and I think companies are trying to figure out, what does that mean? To what extent can we rely on this technology? To what extent do we need humans? I'm not in the camp to think that in the short term we're going to completely replace humans. I think what's going to happen, and I think we're starting to see evidence of it, is that companies are starting to realize that there may be a slightly different role for those humans, but we're going to need them back to work together with this technology. And so while we're seeing stresses in some of those sectors that are sort of very exposed to this kind of technology, my gut's telling me that we'll start to see some job growth come back into those sectors in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we're already starting to see some indications of that, right? We're starting to see more and more evidence that employers are starting to say, hold on, we may have gotten too far out in front of our skis here with respect to AI and the number of jobs or people we think we need. And so they're starting to hire folks back. So there's some indication that the human connectivity, if you will, working alongside AI may in fact be the way forward, Phyllis. And I think that says hopefully a lot about where the economy is headed, and that is that, okay, yeah, there may be some displacement, but ultimately humans and AI are going to have to work together to move our quality of life and our overall economy forward.
Good news for us humans.
I think so. We're going to stop there because that's a positive note.